We've got a very well-known writer with us, whom we've all kind of cherished, read, and adored. He's got, I'm not going into the list of works that he's written because it's going to be very difficult. He's got 17 short story collections, 7 novellas, several travelogues, several essay collections, memoirs, children's literature. I guess he has touched everything. And finally, last year, he has come up with this novel, his first novel in his entire career. He has been writing in short stories for all this while. So that, in some ways, would bring uh, us to talk about something that I would like to know personally, how his journey was. Like, I've seen that you have got an illustrious career. It started from being a school student in Kerala, and you would have encountered books in your house and in the neighborhood libraries. Then moved into doing your post graduation in Mysore, and then going on to work as a lecturer in a college, and then as a manager in a rubber factory, and then moving to Delhi as a journalist, then again going back into Kerala and working there. So it's been a long journey actually, and I'm sure that you would have had several libraries which you have gone through. So I would like to know how these libraries have in some ways shaped your career and shaped your writing or aided your writing, and how it has influenced your life in general actually.
Joshil, I can say in very simple terms, I became a writer because I was a reader. I will go one step ahead and say that I've been a bookworm all my life. And if I weren't a reader, I wouldn't have ever become a writer. I know it because I might have had imagination, but maybe genetically, I don't know where imagination comes from. Wherever it comes from, but what shaped it, what gave it, what gave it, wings to fly, uh, things to imagine came from the books I read. And I happen to be very lucky because in that part of Kerala where I come from, it's interior, very interior rural area. It's predominantly Catholic. Catholicism is part of, in Kerala, it's a very, very strong part of the Christian church. And I grew up in a very conservative background of Catholicism, and books were not. The Catholic Church never encouraged reading, independent reading of books by people, by its believers. But as I said, I was fortunate because my father was some sort of a rebel. He was not a churchgoer, he was a left leaning person. And because of all these things, we had books at home. And that is the place where I began my reading. And then, as part of the social transformation that took place in Kerala in the 50s and 60s, in those days, even now there were village libraries, maybe 200 books, maybe 100 books. Some libraries had 300 or 500 books. But those libraries became the feeding ground for people like me, like a lot of people. So we would on Saturdays and Sundays as 11 or 12-year-old boy, I would go to these libraries, pick up books I have never heard of. And I was able to read, understand, enjoy, read even books that children were not supposed to read. But my father had given me that freedom. So this is what took me forward, or this path of reading. So by the time I left Kerala, when I was 16, to study in Mysore, I had more or less cleaned up most of Malayalam literature in terms of reading. I didn't know, because I didn't know I was going to be a writer. I never thought of being a writer. But to put it very shortly, studying in Mysore, I went to study English literature. And I studied it under a very illustrious name in Kannada literature, Gopala Krishna Adiga. He's he's a founder of the modernist movement in Kannada. I did not know that I was studying under such a great man. There were just three of us studying English literature in St. Philomena's College, Mysore. And he put everything he had into the three of us. The other two were girls from Coorg, Kodagu, who were just waiting to get married, so they were not interested. So I absorbed the whole thing. And so what happened was that all this reading I had done, suddenly Adiga showed me what went behind the books, what happened behind literature, how writers' minds worked, how craft was created. So this is something that suddenly put some light into my head, that there is more to literature than you read and enjoy. And I wrote my first story, my first story when I was 19, when I was in my final year of bachelor's course in Mysore. As a result of all this, and I've been writing ever since. That is the situation.
So, I mean, that it shows that libraries are quite important. I mean, in anybody's life, and especially in a writer's life, or anybody who wants to kind of live a life which is good and which can be cherished, actually. Which brings me to the question that we are in some ways living in an era where probably there is this possibility of attacks that can happen on libraries. We have seen that whenever the state wants to eradicate certain section of the society or a group of people, what they do is they eradicate the libraries because that's the easiest way to finish off one's culture. And which in some ways symbolically we have seen that in the recent past there's been an attack on the Jamia Millia Islamia library, though it is not to kind of take away the books, but it in some ways is symptomatic that we are entering an era which is going to be dangerous. What is your comments on that?
It's very true, Joshil, because I think people pick up a sense of freedom from the books they read. And in reading itself, there is freedom. So the present establishment in New Delhi, Narendra Modi and Amit Shah and company, and the entire ruling BJP and RSS group, they wouldn't like people to, they would like somehow to stop it. They have not started doing that. It may happen any day. I don't know how far they will succeed. That's again, I mean, we can't be afraid that they would destroy everything. I think India is far beyond such petty people. But it can happen. Anything can be started. Attempts will be made because books are dangerous. That is why in my childhood, like I said, the Catholic Church did not want anybody to read beyond what the church prescribed. So because books contain the seed of freedom, of intellectual freedom, of questioning these dirty ancient values or superstitions and the rest of it, and intellectual backwardness. So books are dangerous to any dictator. And Hitler's young brigade was notorious for pulling out books from homes and making bonfires on the streets. Mussolini's people the red shirts were doing that. So this is a fundamental issue. And as you said, it can happen to anybody, anywhere. But India, fortunately, it is not one in India like it was one Italy and one Germany. We are 24 or 25, I don't remember the number of states. That is what we are. So it's not very easy to take this India by the neck and drag it where you want. And I think the present dispensation in Delhi is more or less understanding the difficulty in trying to hold India by one hold, by a single hold, the hold of a single religion. It doesn't work. Because I found in my traveling in India, even Hinduism is of so many different varieties. The Hindu of Kashmir has nothing to do with the Hindu of Andhra Pradesh, for example. The Hindu of Andhra Pradesh is so different, the Hindu of Kerala is so different from the Hindu of Andhra Pradesh. So even Hinduism is so individualistic and has its own special characteristics. So let us see if the RSS succeeds in creating a single Hinduism, but what will they do with the castes? That will be the most important question, I think.
That's in some ways, I mean, that's what brings me and many to the fear that, I mean, I can be born a Christian and I could have left my Christianity. You could have been born a Christian, you could have left your Christianity, and somebody could have born as a Muslim or a Hindu and left his or her Islam or Hinduism. But then, in some ways, what we are seeing now is, like Rohit Vemula said in his suicide note, he said that the value of a man was reduced to his immediate identity and nearest possibility. So that's what everything is being pushed into in this era of ultra nationalism. And you think so? We have uh, any hope of revival, and if so, how it can be from this spread of ultranationalism, which is in some ways kind of bringing out this sense that nationalism is becoming the new religion, actually. It's no longer that nationalism is there and religion is there. Is it like nationalism is becoming the new religion itself, actually, and dangerously so, not in
No,
that
I think
positive manner?
Joshil, they're trying to make it work like that, but I doubt if it can succeed. See, patriotism, their version of patriotism is so narrow cast, it is so backward, it is so much anti-intellectual, anti-freedom that, but all that doesn't mean anything to the ordinary voter. But you see, uh, the way they have pushed nationalism as a Hindu agenda, you see, that is where they have very well managed or very cleverly managed to link nationalism to a particular religion, which is what they have done today in defining the CAA, for example. So if you are a Hindu, you are a nationalist. If you are a Muslim, you are suspect. If you are a Christian, well, we don't know what to do with you, but you are under our watch. So this is the operation that they have been working at. But and also, it is not as simple as if you are a Hindu, you are a nationalist. If you are a Hindu of our kind, you are a nationalist. A secular Hindu is not a nationalist. Like for Modi and Amit Shah and the entire group, the Hindu Malayali, unfortunately, very many of us are left-leaning, communist, CPA, this, that, etc., etc. So those Hindus are not nationalists for them. So this is the complication they are getting themselves into. And it may not be possible to find an easy solution for that. So the nationalist dream is a dream they are dreaming for a long time. It is part of the agenda of the Rashtriya Swayam Sevak Sangh. But how far they can push it and to what limit is something to be. I think we are entering a new phase of Indian history after independence, which is what these people are also saying. So I think we have to wait and see what happens. It could be a major tragedy, or it could be a major tragedy for the people who are trying to do it. Be either way.
I'd like to come back into your writings, actually. And the question that I would like to ask is, I mean, you had for a long time taken the genre of short story as your, I mean, way of writing, actually. And why was it so, actually? Why did you prefer short story over any other genre?
I think, Joshil, I have had, I think it's my lifestyle. I've been wandering from one city to the other, working I've been living in Delhi for about 22 years, etc., etc. So I think my day-to-day life did not permit me to go into a larger canvas like a novel. I wrote novellas, short novels. Maybe I was afraid touch something as big as this novel, for example, which is about 400, nearly 500 pages. So I think I was also worried if I knew how to do that. So it took a long time before I could perhaps come to face this task of writing a full-fledged novel, which I think, even though I am a short story writer, which I think writing a proper novel is the one single major challenge of a fiction writer. You should be able to do that because a large canvassed novel can deal with everything you want to say about people, about this world, about the universe, about God or whosoever is there, etc., etc. You can fill your book with that. So a short story can't do that. A short story can only capture a moment, maybe 5 days, maybe 1 month, or something like that. Because a short story should, if you put in too long a time frame into a short story, then the reader will feel suffocated. He wouldn't know why it is so. So I suppose I waited all these years to gather the courage to do this. And then I discovered that it's not too bad. You can do it. And maybe I will do it again. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
We also hope so. Before coming back into the novel, I'd like to also, you had another novella, Bhaskara Patelarum Enda Jeevitham, which was made into a movie by Adur Gopalakrishnan, Vidayan. I mean, how did you see, I mean, when you saw the movie coming out of your novella, what was the feeling that you're having? I mean, were you happy about it? What's the...
Yeah, I think any writer would be happy to see his work transformed into another medium. Like this is now this novel. This is now being played. It's become a major play in Malayalam in Kerala. It was staged in Trichure yesterday. It was a big success. So I haven't seen it, but I'm very keen to see it because somebody else's mind is working on your story, on your imagination, and he or she is reinterpreting what the reality that you interpreted in a particular way. So it's quite fascinating to look at how somebody would rewrite your imagination. And that's what Gopalakrishnan did, and that is what the present director of the play, Suviran, did. So they have reimagined what I had imagined one day. And I think it's a very positive experience.
So coming to this book, A Secret History of Compassion, so you waited for almost like 73 years, I guess, to write this. Until then, you were writing 75, yeah, 75 years. Until then, you never wrote a novel. You were always writing short stories and other novellas and so on. Now, when you wrote this novel, there's another significant change that happened, which is like till then you were writing in Malayalam. And when you wrote the novel, you switched to English. Is there a reason for this switch? And what was this departure from a short story to a novel and from Malayalam to English?
I think like most people sitting here, English is a second language to all of us. For many people, it's very close to their heart. It is their working language, their professional language. And it could even be the language of their imagination for those of you who are writers or whatever. So for me, I had to switch, my reading had to switch from Malayalam to English because Malayalam is a very small language. It's still a fledgling language, still learning to walk, not fly. It's just 150 years old, 100 and plus years old. So if you want to explore the larger world, you have to know English because through English, you get the Germans, the French, the Russians, the Chinese, the whole lot of them. So I was lucky to, so my reading expanded into these worlds only through English. And then if you want to know philosophy, like a single small book like Bertrand Russell's History of Philosophy transformed my life. See, or Will Durant's book, for example. So such books are not available in Malayalam. It's not. I don't want to say unfortunately. As I said, we are still trying to reach that place. We have not been a colonial nation. Malayalis have been just buying and selling and surviving. So we are not people who went all over the world and had now we are all over the world after the arrival of the IT young men. We are everywhere. But before that, it is a very small little place where nobody knew about the outside world. So I expanded my reading into English ever since I started, especially after I started studying English literature. And then that became the world of my imagination. And it has been with me for more than half a century. So when I decided to write a big novel, I thought, why don't I write this novel in English, which is so close to my heart? And I didn't have to prove anything to anybody that I knew English or I did not know English or whatever. I just wrote it because I love this language. That's it.
But was there any limitations or any kind of special freedom that you had in, say, writing in Malayalam or say writing in English? Is it the same?
Joshil, that's a controversial thing because there is a problem with Malayalam in the sense, I am sure it's with Telugu also. It's very difficult to discuss sexuality in Malayalam because in our culture, sexuality has been it has not degenerated, but people have a degenerative view of sex. It's born from conservatism, from a false sense of morality. All these three religions have created this dirt around sex, etc., etc. So, with the result, if you want to, I'm not talking about writing as if I am a writer of pornography. No, you should be able to discuss it as an adult and go to it. And it's difficult. It's not impossible, but it would have taken me a lot of trouble because we don't even have proper words in Malayalam for many of the sexual activities. And what happens is, and those words are considered as obscene in the Malayalam vocabulary. So if I write those obscene words, well, I am really casting myself out in a manner from families, from homes, etc., etc. So I do have a problem with that. I would like everyone to read me, but when I moved into English, it's a language which has played around with sex in every manner possible, like Henry Miller, like from Shakespeare onwards or even before that, like Chaucer, for example. He was free with telling dirty stories, and he told those stories in such a beautiful way. So English had this heritage of this tradition of being able to deal with sexuality in a way that can be attractive to people and in a way that does not put off people. That is why so that's one advantage I had in writing in English, and there's quite a lot of sex in it. So that is the thing.
Yeah, that's one thing that I've seen many writers say that they feel comfortable to move out of their regional languages and write in uh, English, actually, especially writers who are Dalit writers, Adivasi writers, and so on. We have seen them tell that we don't want to write in the Hindi or the other regional languages that are there and to write in English, actually. I mean, which probably would be, I mean, also linked, not linked to what you have said, but which also says that there is certain kind of limitations that I mean, Indian languages in that sense kind of puts on the writer, actually.
No, I don't think so because maybe people don't want to write in English because maybe they haven't read enough in English. Maybe
I was saying that they want to write in English.
they want to write.
They see it as a liberating
Oh,
medium of,
they do
yeah,
want to
that's what
write.
I was kind of.
Yeah, there is another advantage to it in a practical sense because you are reaching a much larger audience when you write in English. You see, I am going beyond the Kerala audience, the Malayali audience, to Andhra Pradesh or Tamil Nadu or Punjab or wherever, or outside India if the book has a foreign edition, you are reaching out to the world in a much bigger way, and that's a great advantage.
Also, one is liberated from the problem of Sanskritization that is there.
Sanskritization and Sanskritized value systems, which are very. Sanskrit is a very nice language, it's a good language, but its value system that it carries have been imposed on it by terrible minds. So that's why let's not blame the language, blame the people.
Exactly. Yeah. So we have got roughly 5 minutes. I guess we'll just coming back into the question of writing. Actually, there's one anxiety that I always have now in my mind. When I sit back in my home and something comes into my mind, I write it down in my laptop. I scribble it down, and then I suddenly, as time is flying in these times, I start fearing, would tomorrow somebody come and take away my laptop and say that I'm an anti-national or I'm whatever, right? Even my private space is being kind of, I mean, taken away completely. I don't even have the freedom in some ways to kind of write in my private space. I don't know who is tomorrow going to knock at my door at 5 o'clock in the morning and say that, hey, we have to search everything that you've got, right? So you are someone who has lived a long life, seen the periods of emergency, been there in Delhi and elsewhere during those times, and then seen several other moments in the history of this country where different things have happened. So from being in the period of emergency to being in the period of probably Modi-gency, that's for lack of a better term, I term it as Modi-gency. How do you see your fear or anxiety of being able to write and being able to express whatever you want to?
Yeah.
Should we be fearful or should we?
I think we should be very fearful, but that does not mean that we should become silent or inactive. You need to express yourself till it becomes impossible to express yourself. So, emergency was a time when Mrs. Gandhi had literally tightened the screws overnight. There was no pre-emergency, there was no build-up to the emergency. But in India, we have been going towards a peak of something terrible for the last 7 years or so. We are moving step by step. Like Smriti Irani said about somebody recently, baby steps, but actually it's not baby steps. These are giant steps. In the second phase, the steps are really big, leaping. They're going too fast, actually. I don't know if any of you feel that. It is too much speed for India. At least a person like me can see it, what Modi and Amit Shah are doing. So that speed itself may be problematic for them. But as I said, emergency was terrible. I was in Delhi. It was during my Delhi life. And I've seen what happened, especially how the media, as Kuldeep Nair said, when asked to walk, it crawled. And the biggest danger signal that I see today is the way the media is crawling and maybe going literally underground when it has been asked to just stand up. So it has become anti-people, it has become pro-fascist, it has become a liar. At least the media in Malayalam is a total liar, both the electronic. It is not, see, this Goswami fellow is just one example of that. He's a most prominent example of that. But there are so many people working at all stages of the newspapers and channels, steeped in this mentality of surveillance, of becoming subservient to the fascist lords. So this is the most dangerous thing. So this was exactly what happened during the emergency, and I thought this was the end of India. Everything is finished, and we may not ever see freedom again. But one fine day it happened. So I still feel right now, I am feeling the same way. There are similar sounds being produced, similar signals being put out, and the operation is much more organized than Mrs. Gandhi's operation. It is much better organized. The BJP and RSS are far ahead of any other political party in India. Let us be very honest about it. Let's not even pretend about it. So in that sense, these foolish people might make mistakes which might make it very easy for them to continue for another 25 or 50 years, for all I know. So I don't trust these politicians. They are very dangerous people. Unfortunately, we have placed our faith in the hands of the so-called opposition, and they have not fulfilled their duty towards the nation. That is what frightens me. Anything can happen. But again, I say, that like Mrs. Gandhi's time, there is millions of silent people, villagers, small towns people doing all kinds of little jobs who are watching all these things. And one fine day, they will be the people, they are going to be the people who will turn the whole thing upside down. Not this, I'm very sorry to say, not these very, very unreliable, terrible politicians. They are not the people, but the actual people will say, and as I said in the beginning, that is where the real India is, and it is not easy to subdue that India. These people have not subdued it. And let us say, last word, that Narendra Modi is still working on a majority of 37, on a voting of 37%. 63% is still lying outside. What have these opposition parties done to bring that 63% or even 50% together? So, but I am saying, even if these opposition parties do not do anything, so people will wake up one day. It is not, they are not going to stand this for a long time. This is what I hope.
Yeah, that brings me, since you said hope, that brings me to the last question, which is, I mean, do you still have hope, or do you feel that hope is the opium of the masses? Hope is the opium of the masses. Like Marx said that it's like, I mean, and I mean, the way in which institutions are being scuttled, courts are being compromised, every institution is being compromised. And should we keep hoping, or should we start fighting against atrocious laws such as the CA, and start writing as writers, reading as readers, fighting as fighters on the street? I mean, studying as students in the classrooms, and going everywhere and doing whatever we can to kind of fight it out rather than keep hoping.
No, hoping will not help at all. As I said, I think I said that. Because you have to keep working, talking, speaking, and acting to make sure that and to let other people know where we stand. Even silence is dangerous, if you ask me today. So you have to bring yourself to, at least in your heart of heart. I always say, a writer, there are writers who are not able to fight back, who are not able to raise their voices. So I say so it doesn't matter. But at least in their heart of hearts, they should be Democrats, they should be secular minded, they should be pro people, they should be pro women, they should be pro Dalit. If they can at least do these things, that itself will become a big, huge wall of strength. That's what I think.
Thank you. Now I guess we should open up the forum for questions. If there-
Hello, sir. It was nice listening to you, and of course, I agree some of your concerns regarding the trajectory of how right-wing extremism is taking India in a particular direction. My question to you is, I'm a Hindu Malayali who grew up seeing the fascist tendencies of the Communist Party in Kerala, especially the way they trampled upon the rights of a lot of Hindus. As an average Hindu, I'm speaking.
What Hindus?
Like taking over the control of the temples, whereas not doing the same for the other religions and things like that. So I've seen that as I grew up. And one question I have in my mind as I listen to you is, why do you also share the same concern, Kerala being the highest recruitment ground for ISIS terrorists, and recently we had these reports coming in that we have so much of hub of illegal Rohingyas in Cochin. So
Illegal what?
Rohingya immigrants in Cochin being the hub. These are newspaper reports I read in Times of India. So some of the concerns which, and I don't know.
Did you say it was misreported?
No, I didn't say that. I'm saying I read it.
Reported in Times of India.
I think so,
God
yes.
save you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I share your skepticism about the newspaper reporting. That's another matter.
Yeah.
No, but I'm coming from a space where when I was studying in college, there was this very infamous incident of somebody writing a question paper for a college and their hand being chopped off by a Muslim extremist. So there is a polarization and an indoctrination happening at both ends. But as a Malayali, when I hear intellectuals like you, you're only always mentioning one part, which I feel, because I grew up there, I moved out only about maybe 10 years ago, I see it more as a response to what has been lingering on for a long, long time under the watch of Communist Party and the Congress. Your views on that?
Have you been also under the watch of the RSS by any chance?
I don't think RSS and Kerala has
Okay.
anything, don't have anything there.
Just asking, getting our ground clear. Anyway, I think you're terribly mistaken in especially some of the statements you made about Kerala being a what did you say? A recruiting ground for the IES. I think Kerala has, I don't know how, see, 2/3 of Kerala is Muslim, the population, or nearly 2/3 is Muslim. Till now, from what I hear, or not only what I hear, what we actually know, I think about 60 or 70 individuals have gone over to IS or ISS or whatever. And that this is also police versions of how many people went. So out of 3.25, sorry, yeah, 3.25 crores, if 60 people, say 100 people, say 1,000 people go over to the IS and kill themselves in Iraq or Syria, so you can't say that Kerala is a recruiting ground for this thing and social harmony is threatened. See, Kerala has, as far as I also grew up in Kerala, I'm still living there, it has a perfect picture of social harmony. And it is making a lot of people in other parts of India, especially in the north, very envious and angry. Kerala has become insubordinate because we are not killing each other like the way they would love us to do. This is a problem. We are not doing that. Communist Party, I have fought Communist Party. Communist DYFI, it's called the Democratic Youth Federation of India. Communist Party's youth wing has manhandled me. That doesn't mean it has manhandled me for saying, again, please don't think that I'm a sex maniac, for saying that their great leaders like A.K. Gopalan and P. Krishnapilla, marvelous people. I said when they were in hiding, see, they were hunted by the Congress governments at that time. The Communist Party was banned. And they wrote their autobiographies and they describe what beautiful sexual life they had when they were in hiding with in the houses where they were living with various kinds of people. I mentioned it publicly in a place and the new generation communists thought I was defaming their leaders, whereas they have written it themselves. So what I'm saying is they have a fascist mindset, but they are not communal. They are not using religion against another religion. They are not using religion as a tool and as a weapon. They don't do that. They are people who, they also go to Muslims, they will go to Christians, they will go to Hindus to beg for votes and do things to please them. But they are not killers. They have killed RSS people, that I know, and RSS people have killed them also in large numbers. And both are unforgivable. But otherwise, between Muslims and Christians and Hindus in Kerala, till now, there has been almost no fight, no what you call, no communal rights. Communal rights. So I think you should recheck your facts a little more and stop. Anyway, Times of India is good. So, but also read some other newspapers if you can.